Okay, so let's read it and translate again. In the evening, John and Yoko were in front of their apartment building. There was a man at the door. It was Mark Chapman. This time, there wasn't a pen in his hand, but a gun. Miss Lennon, he said. Suddenly, there were 5 shots, and John Lennon was dead. He was only 40 years old. 3 minutes later, the police were at the apartment building. Mark Chapman was still there. His only words were, "I shot John Lennon." 在傍晚的时候呢 ，John 和 Yoko 呢就来到了他们家里边，在家门口站着，因为他们在门口看到了一个人，这个人就是 Mark Chapman。这次他手里拿的不再是一支笔，而是一把手枪。Miss Lennon， 他叫了约翰列侬，突然间就朝着约翰列侬开了5枪，约翰列侬不幸遇难。他当时年仅40岁。3分钟之后，警察便赶到了他的住所。Mark Chapman 并没有逃走，他依然站在那里。他最后说了一句话，就是“我开枪杀死了约翰列侬”。Okay, and let's see the simple path here. John and Yoko were in front of the apartment, and there was a man at the door. It was Mark Chapman, and there wasn't. We learned, right? He said. Suddenly there were 5 shots. And John Lennon was dead. And he was. 3 minutes later, police were at the apartment building. Mark Chapman was still there. He only were. See, we can find a lot of was, wasn't, were, and weren't. 所以我们本节课依旧还是延续我们上一讲给大家讲的过去时代，出现大量的 was, wasn't, were 还有 weren't. Okay, and let's all about the text. 那么这是我们今天来讲的小故事。Can you just retell it for me? 你能给大家复述一下吗？ What story we learned today? Okay, answer my question. Today, we're learning a story. Whose story? John Lennon, right? And what happened to John Lennon? Yes, he was killed, or maybe he was shot by a man. Who? By Mark Chapman, right? And do you still remember the time the murder happened? The time? The 8th of December, 1980. And where was it? It was in London or it was in New York? Yes, it was in New York. At that time, John Lennon was alone or with someone else? No, he wasn't alone, right? He was with his wife, Yoko. When did John Lennon murder? In the evening or in the afternoon? In the afternoon. And how? How was he killed? How was he killed? He was killed by a gun. 5 shots. See? So you put everything together and you can give us a story. 把刚刚老师问的问题呢，你就可以将今天这个小故事给大家复述出来。And try to use simple past to describe the story. 别忘记用我们刚刚学过的过去时代来将这故事给大家表述出来。Okay? Last time. Let's read again, and your job is to retell for me. 我们最后再读一遍，请各位同学把这篇文章给我们复述出来。Okay? There was a man at the door.
Unit 13, Exercise 1B. Listen and mark the statements true or false. There was a man at the door. On the 8th of December 1980, ex-Beatle John Lennon and his wife Yoko Ono were in New York. In the afternoon, they were on their way to a recording studio to work on a new song. There was an American called Mark Chapman in the street. In his hand, there was a piece of paper and a pen. "Mr. Lennon," he said, "can I have your autograph?" John Lennon signed his name, and Chapman went away. In the evening, John and Yoko were in front of their apartment building. There was a man at the door. It was Mark Chapman. This time, there wasn't a pen in his hand, but a gun. "Mr. Lennon," he said. Suddenly there were 5 shots, and John Lennon was dead. He was only 40 years old. 3 minutes later, the police were at the apartment building. Mark Chapman was still there. His only words were, "I shot John Lennon."
Okay, so that's about the text, the story. And your job is to try to retell the story for everyone you know. And that's what we'll learn today about John Lennon. And next, we're going to listen next story to learn more about John Lennon. Read the article again and listen. Mark statements true or false. So we have listened to the article again, and then this time it's easy for you to make the choice here. Number 1, Yoko Ono was John Lennon's wife. Of course, right? So this is T or S? T. Right, of course. Number 2, Mark Chapman was English. You sure? Mark Chapman was English? No. The murder happened in New York. Of course. Mark Chapman was American, right? So here. Was English? No, of course no. It's false. F. There were 2 shots from the gun. 2 shots? No, it's 5 shots. So 2 shots, wrong. It's F. Last one, the police were there in 5 minutes. Is 5 minutes? No. It's faster than that, right? It should be 3 minutes here. So T, F, F, F. It is quite easy for you to answer all the questions here. And that's all about story. And then let's learn more about John Lennon and the Beatles. So next part, listen. What do you know about the Beatles? Answer the questions. Number 1, before listening and guess, where were the Beatles from? From America? I don't know it. 2, how many men there in the group? You know, it was a band, Beatles, right? How many men here? 3, 4, 5? Guess. 3. What were their names? Okay, I told you to browse the internet to find some information about the Beatles. If you did that, you may answer the question very easily. But you didn't do that. Now listen and find answers. And I will play the recording for you. Listen carefully. Read the questions here. 1, 2, 3. Listen and check your answer, okay?
Unit 13, Exercise 5B. Listen and check your answers.
Oh, I love that song. I think I know it. Is it John Lennon? That's right. He was my favourite. I remember the day he was shot. I was really sad. When was that, Mum?
1980. December 1980. He wasn't very old. He was only 40.
What was the name of that band he was in before he was shot?
Oh, Tom. The Beatles.
Oh, yes, right. Of course. Were they from London?
No, they weren't. They were from Liverpool. Oh, they were fantastic. Just wonderful.
How many of them were there? In the Beatles, I mean.
There were 4 of them. John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Very young. John was my favourite.
Are their songs still on the radio?
Yes, they are. That song, Yesterday, for example, that's a really famous Beatles song. They play that on the radio a lot.
Oh, yeah, I know that one. There was a really good song called Miss You on the radio last week. I think that was the Beatles too.
No, Tom, I don't think so. Miss You was the Rolling Stones, not the Beatles.
Okay, if you say so, Mum. Anyway, when did the Beatles break up? When did they stop?
1970. John Lennon just said, "I want to stop." And they broke up. Then they did their own.
Okay, so I told you to browse the information about the Beatles. So here we go. This is the map of that, right? This is the map of Britain. And this is London, a very famous city. But to the north of it, another city, Liverpool, is also very famous. I think boys will know that Liverpool is very famous football team, huh? 很著名的足球队啊 Liverpool. Okay, so let's answer the three questions here. I think it's clear for you, right? Number one, where were the Beatles from? From America or not? No, they're from Liverpool, right? They're from the UK. 他们是一个英国乐队，来自利物浦 Liverpool. So you would say the Beatles are from Liverpool. Number two, how many men there in the group? How many? There are four, right? Four men. What are they? Of course, John Lennon. John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Four men in this group. Okay, here we go. It's all about the answers. Now, I want you to do next practice. Listen again and mark the statement true or false. Number one, guess, true or false. John Lennon was Mom's favorite singer. Really? Two, you never hear Beatles songs on the radio now. Never. Three, Miss You was a famous Beatles song. Really? Four, the Beatles were still together in 1969. Okay, this time, listen again and try to answer the questions. Which one is true? Which one is false? Now listen again.
Unit 13, Exercise 5B. Listen and check your answers.
Oh, I love that song. I think I know it. Is it John Lennon? That's right. He was my favourite. I remember the day he was shot. I was really sad. When was that, Mum? 1980. December 1980. He wasn't very old. He was only 40. What was the name of that band he was in before he was shot? Oh, Tom, the Beatles. Oh, yes, right, of course. Were they from London? No, they weren't. They were from Liverpool. Oh, they were fantastic. Just wonderful. How many of them were there? In the Beatles, I mean. There were four of them. John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Very young. John was my favourite. Are their songs still on the radio? Yes, they are. That song, Yesterday, for example. That's a really famous Beatles song. They play that on the radio a lot. Oh, yeah, I know that one. There was a really good song called Miss You on the radio last week. I think that was the Beatles too. No, Tom, I don't think so. Miss You was the Rolling Stones, not the Beatles. Okay, if you say so, Mum. Anyway, when did the Beatles break up? When did they stop? 1970. John Lennon just said, I want to stop. And they broke up. Then they did their own.
Okay, so let's check the answer. Number one, John Lennon was Mom's favorite singer, of course. See, when Mom was doing something, Mom was singing. See, of course. Number one, T. Number two, you never hear Beatles songs on radio now. No, they're so famous around the world. You can't hear that. So, number two, no. False. Three, Miss You was a famous Beatles song. You sure Miss You was Beatles song? No. Miss You was a song from Rolling Stone. So, number three, false. Last one, the Beatles were still together in 1969. Yes, they broke up in 1970. That means they were together in 1969. So this one, true. T, F, F, T. Okay, there's so much about John Lennon and his Beatles. That's it. And then, let's see the everyday English for you today. Read and listen. What is Rob's problem? Read, listen, and check your answers. You may take a look at your book and see some pictures here, and I will play it for you. Let's read it first. Let's see what happened to Rob. What's Rob's problem? Okay.